Hey, I'm Ryan, and today I just want to cover our shaping foam and the tools that we have to get started with shaping. And as a hold manufacturer, we have a lot of people reaching out and be like, hey, how do I get started with shaping? Or hey, can I buy foam from you because I've been shaping for a while? And so that's something that we buy a lot of this foam for our own hold design, and we cut it into blocks and offer it to you because it's really natural progression for people, you know, as a route setter or as a climber, as you're interacting with the holds, a natural progression is to design your own holds. And it's a really healthy way to start thinking about the ergonomics of a hold, how you grip them, how you move through them, as if you're shaping yourself. And so it's something that we really want to support and enable. And so we buy our foam in large blocks. This is our 4-pound high density foam. This is our preferred foam for designing climbing holds at Escape, in our working class and our Kingdom holds. In the past, we've used like a 2-pound, it's more like a floral foam. It's a lot softer, but this is really our go-to. And once you get used to a high density foam, so this is really rigid, once you get used to it, it's really fun to carve with, and it allows you to hold more detail. Where the floral foam, it can dent, it can mash, and you just don't have quite as much control when you're working with it. And so there's a bit of a learning curve to working with the high density foam if you're not used to it. But once you get over that learning curve, you can do a lot of really cool things. So that's our foam that we offer. And then I've been shaping for about a decade now, and I've used just about every tool I could get my hands on. And what I've found is that these 4 basic shaping tools is all I use. And then these are the bits and the bolt used to kind of finish it off as far as attaching it to the wall and, you know, making sure it's a professional climbing hold. But all the shaping happens here. And so with my shaping kit, I have all kinds of tools, but really the only 4 I pull out are these. And so as we put together the kit, just to enable you, is like, hey, how do I get started in shaping? Grab some foam, grab your basic professional tools, and you'll be up and running with creating your own climbing holds. So the first tool, and this is what you start with, this is just a rough cut saw. And so with this saw, this is where you're taking your square block of foam and you really start to find the climbing hold inside the foam, where you're taking off the big pieces, creating the general shape, and you can fine tune pretty far with this saw. It's nice and rigid, what gives you quite a bit of control. Once you have it roughed out with this is our 6-inch saw. Once it's roughed out with that saw, then you can move on to the plane. And this is especially useful like on a slope or anything with like a rounded radius, as you can kind of take the plane and kind of create those arches and those rounded areas, knock off any of like the rough edges that are left with the saw. Kind of helps you fine tune it one more level. And then this is where everything really starts to happen, is once you get your shape that you're ready for this is our medium grit. It's like a sponge sand paper. And that sponge it's flexible, and that lets you really hold whatever radius or profile you want versus like a block, because that's going to leave some hard lines if you're using a block of foam. And so the sponge really lets you kind of curve and move around and create those nice profiles with your climbing hold. So this is one of the most important tools as far as finishing, you know, a nice ergonomic shape. And then if it's a simple texture shape, it's really going to end there with the foam. You might touch it up a little bit with your fingers, but again, this is really, it's a really dense foam, and so most of it's going to happen with the sandpaper here. If you're doing something with a lot of detail, like our sandstone line has lots of detailed lines or different textures like that, then this shaping tool is the go-to. This is a R1. It has 2 different ends to it. It has this rounded edge here, and then this comes to a bit more of a point. In between, I've had all kinds of different shaping tools that I've used. This is the one I pull out, and I can do just about every texture that I want, and it works really nice. So this is the shaping tool for putting in any of those like details or aesthetic lines or different textures that you might be going for. Then once your shape is complete, it's time to make sure you can bolt that or screw it onto the wall. And that's where these tools come in. And so if we're doing a bolt-on hold, you're gonna need to drill out your bolt hole. And so this is the M10. We use metric because it's Metric's just slightly bigger than the Imperial, a 3/8/16, and so you want this to be universal. So get a metric M10 drill bit to drill out your holes, and that's going to work whether that hole's being used internationally. Some gyms in Canada and some in the US even use metric bolts. And so just make sure that you don't have a 3/8/16 bolt, just one size it up to the M10. So that's what we're doing. We're going to drill out the hole for your bolt hole to attach it to your hole to the climbing wall. Use a drill press if you have one. It's going to make sure it's nice and straight. If you have to do it by hand, just be really careful that you're coming down at a 90-degree angle and you're not wobbling around, okay? Then once your hole is drilled out, this is a really important tool. This is a counter bore. This has like a plunge on the front. This is the exact size that's going to follow the hole that you just created. So this tip is going to follow that hole and then keep it nice and straight and centered. And that way, as it spins out, you're creating the recess area for the bolt head. So this creates a really professional finish for your bolt head to drop into the foam. And that's really the only way, otherwise you're kind of guessing the drill bit sizes and whatnot. This is the tool to use, this counter shank drill bit. And then you might be wondering, hey, why do we have a bolt in the kit? And that's because depending on your hold, especially if it's sloped down, we want that bolt head to sit in a way that when your hand's on the climbing hold, you're not feeling the bolt head itself. So we need to make sure that's recessed just enough that it's out of the way. So if it's a flat top, we want that perfectly flush with the top of the climbing hold. And then that gets a little harder as you're putting a bolt head on like a sloped surface, because then you're kind of balancing how recessed is it versus how much is it pushing up. And so as I'm drilling out the hole with the counter bore to create the head for the bolt, is I'm dropping the bolt in, pretty often, trying to fine tune that the bolt is just not part of the climbing hold, and that it's not intrusive. That's kind of the goal, is really setting that. And then the last tool we have is your countersink drill bit. And this is for putting your set screw holes, if it's a large hole on the side, to make sure that you can run a set screw in there and that the hole's not spinning, or if it's a screw-on hole, then all you're using is this set screw drill bit, and you're just drilling out your set screws with this number 10 set screw. So that's your quick overview on the shaping foam that we use and the kit that we offer. And it's, like I said, shaping is one of the best ways to learn more about climbing, the movement and the grips. And it's definitely a way to really help progress that next step of wherever you are in your climbing. And it's just really fun to mess around with. So go ahead and pick up your shaping foam and kit and let us know if you have any questions.